In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 118.
I,
Yeah.
I ran out of jokes when we were like in the 90s. We're probably even older. I don't know. We don't really need to pause for jokes anymore at this point.
Yeah, so let's let's kick it off straight with the NBA. So do we want to take a look at the Eastern Conference first? Let's see
Yeah,
how.
so we're now up to the Eastern Conference Finals. Indiana carved through Milwaukee, who were down Giannis, and a New York team that was very tough, but kind of didn't have there was too much wear and tear for them to probably sustain their very admirable and gritty play style. And so the injuries finally caught up with them.
Yeah.
So now we look at Boston, Indiana in the final. Boston really hasn't had a tough time with anybody. 5 game series against both
Twice.
Miami and Cleveland. Um, you could argue that Boston hasn't really played anyone in the sense of Donovan Mitchell got hurt like game 4 or 5 of that series. Um,
Yeah.
and he is kind of like the ultimate motor for the Cavs. So I'm not really sure. Like it seems like Boston is running through nobody in necessarily in the East. Indiana is already down 2 games to nothing, I believe.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know. Indiana gave them fits in game one. It really could have probably gone either way. The thing is it kind of was an opportunity to strike, and don't know if there's any other opportunities to really control the series without leading it. And you knew that Boston probably wasn't going to perform weekly twice in a row.
Hmm.
So now we're in a 2-0 spot where it's kind of hard to see it going any other way.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I do see like does Indiana take this more than 5 games? I mean, I can see it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think this could go 6 in the sense of that this seems like a series that Indiana unfortunately loses at home. But the way that the NBA works now, it's really hard to sweep, and I know that nothing is really left without controversy now. So to play devil's advocate on that, I think that's better for NBA ratings to if that is a force in the equation to push a series past 4 games,
mhm.
especially because when you look at how Boston has played so far and how little they've had to compared to anybody else in the East,
Yep.
um, it doesn't really make sense. And the way that the postseason has gone on the East side of the bracket has kind of been a breeze and something to almost forget about.
I
And
mean,
so
yeah,
I don't think that it's great for the NBA as a product to be like, okay, we did the 3 weeks of basketball, but there was none of that, if necessary, game 5, 6, 7 stuff when the story was being told for somebody's championship.
yeah,
So without that, the NBA looks bad.
yeah.
And
But I mean,
you
like,
know,
you can look at the rest of the bracket, right? Aside from any Boston game so far, and you have Cleveland, Orlando went 7 games. You have both Milwaukee and Indiana and New York and Philly went 6 games, right? So regardless of what happened in the semifinals, like they were facing a team that's played at least like 3 more games than them. So they've had more rest. They're just
And,
fresher.
my hot take of all of this is that I think that Cleveland Orlando was by far the best playoff series on either side of the bracket so far because it gave you two teams that were, in the mix. Like Cleveland made the playoffs the past year or two, but their seeding was pretty much the same and they lost, I think, in the first round last year.
Yeah, I
But
think
they,
so.
they were stronger and healthier this year. And then you have Orlando up and coming. Neither of these playing teams, so neither of them are necessarily write offs. And going 7 games, not to mention it, I watched that game 7. Orlando had like a 20-point lead,
Yeah.
and then Cleveland came back. So that was pretty much everything you could hope for in a series.
Yeah.
And, you know, Indiana and New York was great, but like outside of those two series, I don't know that you can boldly proclaim that that kind of basketball, which should be the kind of basketball you see a lot of this time of year, has really been there.
Fair, yeah. I agree. So
So
I mean,
you-
like that
it's
that
just
being
hard to
said,
look past
right?
Boston.
That being said, as much as I can see Boston and Indiana going 6 games, do I think the series will live up to like Cleveland, Orlando, or
No,
Indiana and New York? Really not.
no, no. I think that if you're a true fan of the game, Indiana and New York on the eastern side was the closest you come. But even then, the way that the NBA product is right now is like it's one blowout versus the other, and like maybe you get one or two close games in there.
Yeah,
So like I know that we kind of are nostalgic in a sense about the NBA when we record because to us and how we grew up, the NBA was always like it wasn't that we have a problem with scores in the hundreds. What we have a problem with is that the volatility is way too high.
I mean,
There's not a
my
lot of games that come down to the last 2 minutes.
right, but also my problem is not necessarily scores being in the hundred. It's more so like growing up with the type of basketball we did, where w- while scoring was still prevalent, it was still a very defensive minded game, and the amount of change that has the game has seen in order to become what it is really today just makes the game so different. And I understand that like different doesn't necessarily mean bad, it's just different, right?
Right. So I think what's great about sports now is professional athletes in the game today had a lot of amazing plethora of resources, in terms of the internet, in terms of coaches, in terms of AAU, stuff like that. There's a lot of different avenues to showcase your abilities and allow you to get to the professional level. The downside of it is because there's so many different avenues, instead of battling adversity the first time that somebody runs into failure one way, they just pivot and go another way. So there's no real competitiveness because if a guy his academics aren't strong in high school and he essentially is so academically weak he can't go to college, he can go to the G League and basically never have to touch a textbook the rest of his life. And so there's no competitive spirit that says, okay, your back's against the wall. How are you going to push through it? And there's nothing that says, there's this person in front of you who's going to take everything from you. What are you going to do about it to stop it? And the response be, well, I'm going to do my damnness to stop it. And that's kind of the problem with the NBA at this point is that everybody just wants to make their offensive highlight because they think that the fan doesn't care about the defense. And so there's a lack of competitiveness because that doesn't get as much traffic and love um, on the internet. So,
Right.
that's where the NBA feels like has really dropped off. And that's what makes us, I feel like, nostalgic is because, um, I don't know, you kind of, not that you want it to be like an 89, 87 game at the end of the game, but you kind of want it to come down to like some really terrific plays on both sides.
Oh, and also
Because
don't get
like
me
it,
wrong, right? Like there is a place for blowouts in basketball.
oh
There's
yeah,
a place for blowouts in every game, in every sport, right?
right.
But like I would totally love to see those one or two games that mean a lot that are really close.
Well, so blowouts are supposed to occur where the talent differential is such that it's so monumental that the other team probably isn't in a justifiable position over a long stretch of time, such as a season,
Yeah.
to be able to be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And the playoffs are supposed to eliminate those teams who get blown out.
Right.
Now the thing is the NBA is full of teams that get blown out in the playoffs
Yeah.
because everybody does.
But
And
I mean, I don't think having the play-in tournament solves that at all, which is one of the things I really feel like it should have solved.
I think that unfortunately the playing tournament, the in-season tournament, um,
The
the
in-season
in-season
tournament,
tournament,
I'm not even caring
it,
about.
it didn't help. It
Uh,
does not make the NBA more competitive.
no.
And I think the fact that the Lakers threw up a banner that was like a high school banner um, to showcase, um, it's kind of like 1,000 point score. Like you get your name and you get the year, but it's the banner that a sports fan buys where it just shows all the years that something happened.
Yeah.
If it was a true championship banner, it would get its own flag.
Yeah.
But I think the fact of the matter is that even professional athletes realize that this is nothing to them.
Yeah,
Um,
like uh I mean, what are I don't know what they're going to do. But they got to do
yeah,
something, I feel like.
the playing tournament was the NBA's. I at this point I feel like the NBA's way of saying we didn't make enough money in the regular season through the 82 games, and we're going to give 1 or 2 days to kind of like not have too much of a lull between the regular season ending and the playoffs starting. But
Yeah.
the thing is like if you're a Pistons fan, what the fuck does it matter? You're still not there. So like
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah, anyway, let's take a look at the Western Conference now.
Yeah, so the number one seed, Oklahoma City. I don't think that anybody thought of them as an overly conventional number one seed. Last year they were in the play-in, but they're obviously extremely young. They took a lot of draft assets to build this team,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Gordon Hayward, who they acquired during the season, is probably their oldest player. And they didn't play him. So these are essentially guys outside of Shea Gilgis Alexander experiencing this all for the first time. And so I've always been an advocate of or a believer of that. It takes time for young guys to figure out that's a different animal. They swept New Orleans. I'm sure that was a little bit of a a boost in the ego
Yeah.
that eventually kicked them in the ass coming back down.
Again, play-in
Um,
team.
yeah,
What's new?
but they hung tough with Dallas. A lot of those games were close,
Yeah.
but they just came out on the wrong end of it, and so now we're looking at Dallas, who has a 2-0 series lead on Minnesota. Minnesota's a team that like I don't know. I could see them contending for a championship. I
Hmm.
think they're a great paper team. I think they're a great video game team. When you have an experienced leader like Mike Conley, you have Anthony Edwards, you have Carl Anthony Towns, and you have a defensive ace in Rudy Gobert. I know a lot of people don't love Rudy Gobert,
Yeah.
but I think that you have a little bit of everything that can get you a lot of wins. Unfortunately, they're not in the best position to get them right now, being down 0-2.
Hmm.
But they did take down the reigning champs, which is like Jokic going down has been the hardest thing to accomplish for the rest of the West
Yep.
for a couple of years now. And so them winning that series kind of told me, okay, they're truly capable of winning any series.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
And I mean, Phoenix, Los Angeles, they basically were no different than New Orleans, other
Yeah,
than
like literally, New
they
Orleans,
had
Phoenix,
better
and
players.
LA were NPCs. Everybody else was playing a playoff tournament. So I mean, that's what I feel like. Like looking at the quarterfinals, at least in the West, it was like you had 5 teams in the playoffs and 3 NPCs. It was
Yeah.
so like, all right, I'm just gonna come back in the semifinals. Thank God, I think both semifinals like series were good.
Yes,
Um,
but this is again what I was saying earlier is like the overall playoff bracket should be the cut line of where the bad games stop and the good ones start.
yeah,
And instead, the goalpost has moved to the semifinals is now where we start to get good series.
yeah,
So it's kind of like, you do have parity in the slightest sense of Miami won last year as
mm-hmm,
an 8 seed and went all the way to the final.
mm-hmm.
But outside of that, can you realistically say to yourself, I remember when in this format, or I remember when in this era of basketball where defense wasn't valued? You probably can't.
But
I'm
so
sure it's there, but it's not memorable enough to be there.
like my question is, right, like, okay, how do they fix this, right? So let's just take an assumption and let's say we go down from 16 teams to 12, right? Like I know they went the opposite way, but they went up to 10 with the play-ins or whatever. But like how do we make the playoffs actually, good series, right? So the only way that you can ideally do that at this point is to reduce the number of teams in the playoffs, but they won't, right? Because they don't make as much money.
Or what they have to do is change the formula in in their marketing because the NBA lo- ever since the internet age has gotten more in bed with YouTube channels like House of Highlights, Golden Hoops, all these other things that you can find on YouTube front pages that'll show you everybody's best dribble moves, everybody's best dunks. They won't show you great blocks or steals or anything like that.
But that's not
So I
what people want
think
to watch. That's just public
for
sentiment.
now, but if the NBA as an organization starts to put a precedent on it, valuing it more. I'm not saying officials need to value it more, but I'm saying like if there was some kind of way to highlight how cool it was to do the defensive side of the ball, because the offensive side of the ball you have to have regardless.
No, no,
Like
but
no matter the era you were in, you had to have something.
you have to also look at it, right? How easy is it to highlight these different plays, right? You you have gratification in the ball going into the net, right? You
Right.
have a form of instant gratification for the person playing and for the viewer. So it is much easier to value the offensive side of the ball. And that's why you don't see defensive plays make it, right? It's
But I think it's easier until it's so easy that the market becomes oversaturated for it. And I think that's where we're at is I know that it takes a lot to because like I'm 30 years old. I've never been able to dunk a basketball, and I probably never will. But I know that at this point in time, any professional athlete that pursues basketball probably can do one. So the fact that it's highlighted every time it happens, eventually
But
this is
it's
what basically killed the dunk contest is like at this point everybody can do it. So somebody's got to bring something to the table that we're not seeing to impress.
Yeah, but like, so the thing is, the reason it's also very easy to highlight dunks because they're very quick, right? You don't necessarily need in your highlight the entire lead up to the guy running for that dunk, right? It NBA highlights have become so fast, and like everything has like 1 second on screen, so they just like kind of highlight every time the ball goes in the damn
Yes,
hoop.
it's an ADHD person's wet dream. I get that. But like going back to the dunk contest is like I look at it as we've now seen everything because there's so many outlets to be able to see it that it would almost make more sense for a guy to be like, I want my prop to be a guy who's going to try to block me.
Yeah.
Because I think that at this point in time, there's just not enough competitive energy in the game to where people see it enough. So you have to, it may be more impressive to get like a guy to actually try on defense. I don't know. That's just kind of. I think that we agree to disagree with this. I understand your point of view on the marketing and how the game looks. Um, it's a societal change overall that unfortunately impacts the NBA. When we look at sports like baseball, it's always been seen as the traditional gentleman's game. Um, and baseball has been hesitant to change to some extent, but they've largely been able to maintain the integrity of the game for 100 years. Hockey is no different. Football, we're starting to see some changes, but it's for player health. Like the kickoff rule is going to be a lot different this year.
Yep.
But basketball I understand it's more fluid, it's more free flowing, but it's changing the most,
Mm-hmm.
and it is going to create gaps between generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
All right. Last NBA topic before we move to the NHL.
yeah, this is actually kind of a good transition one. Um, so we learned this week, and it was in speculation that the NBA on TNT is going to uh, cease to take place with any kind of regularity. They're losing the NBA broadcasting rights after the 24-25 season, which is next season.
Yep.
Um, this sucks because I think a lot of what keeps people like me going back to the NBA is shows like Inside the NBA because of they're able to intertwine entertainment uh, and humor with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of buzz going around that Ernie Johnson, who hosts Inside the NBA, probably is not going to leave TNT because TNT also allows him to do baseball broadcasts and stuff like that. Like he can stay within sports there. But Inside the NBA has been a staple for a very long time, since the 90s now, I think, if not longer. Um, and so NBC, I guess, bid 7 billion for the rights, which the Turner Broadcasting Company could not match,
Yep.
or either that or just chose not to match. And now we're likely looking at least for the next few months, a purgatory phase of this show before it reaches its ultimate death, um, which is very sad. Um, but NBC is trying to do whatever they can to bring nostalgia back into it. They want to bring that Round Ball Rock song back that you would always hear in the '90s broadcast.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably also a boost for people who cut the cord or use antenna TVs like myself, to have games on basic cable, um, or not basic cable antenna. So viewership will pick up, but this is an interesting thing for the NHL because the NHL was it a year or 2 years ago signed over to ESPN in turn, which
Mm-hmm.
was basically the same thing that the NBA had been doing for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were talking about this before the show about how um, the NHL probably stood to gain an audience because of the cross marketing, because Charles Barkley was talking about hockey, all these other things,
Yeah.
and it was happening on the TNT, TBS, all those channel wavelengths.
Yeah.
Now that that's gone, where does this leave the NHL in their broadcasting? Because it feels eerily familiar to when TNT and TBS have, like, they'll have baseball, but like when NBCSN was versus and stuff like that, like they had other sports, but it's going to feel a lot like that again, where it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like TNT will never cease to exist because they don't only do sports.
Yep.
But it certainly feels like the NHL, which finally was seeing some growth again, is about to get hit harder.
Yeah. All
So
right. On to the Eastern Conference for the NHL playoffs. My wish did not come true from last episode, if you remember. For
no,
neither,
take us through your wish.
you remember I said my wish is that the number one seed curse affects the Rangers?
The President's Trophy curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Carolina. It just goes to show, like in hockey, when you have a little bit of a stereotypical take, or you look at a team for what you think they are based on the regular season, it's kind of the same in the playoffs to a larger degree. So I know we said this in a previous episode. The only team that the Islanders could have conceivably beat in the playoffs was Carolina, because Carolina is very defensive minded and they don't necessarily know how to score a lot of goals.
Yo.
Okay. Carolina adds Evgeny Kuznetsov. They add um, Jake Gensel. So they have scoring, but do they know how to use it? And so it then turns from Gensel early in the playoffs is like he's playoff Gensel. He's doing all the stuff he was doing in the cup runs with the Penguins. Because Netsov, doesn't have to be the number two guy, but eventually the system kind of doesn't allow for it.
Yeah.
Gensel slows down and he's got 1 point, like halfway through the series with the Rangers. And the problem is that when you are too defensively sound and you don't have elite goaltending, which that's the thing with Carolina, they still or Freddie Anderson is a very above average goalie, but he's shown with the Leafs and with the Hurricanes that he's not the guy to shut it down when you can't score for him.
Yep.
So now it's kind of like Carolina could only beat New York Islanders, and the Islanders could only beat the Hurricanes. So is it really a surprise that New York outlasted? No, it's not, because New York has shown the Rangers have shown not only did we back up the Brinks truck for Panarin, but we kept a large part of our core.
Yeah.
We have solid defense, and we have Shesterkin in goal.
Yep.
What exactly are you going to do to us that we're not prepared for?
Mm-hmm. No, I do have to say, out of all the like, we just got finished talking about the NBA playoff series as being not that great. I have to say, I actually enjoyed Florida and Tampa Bay, even though it ended in 5 games. Some of those games were a lot closer than a 5 game series. Uh,
That's what we were saying in the NBA. That's the power of there not being a blowout.
yeah, and
That a 4-1 series is memorable to you because every game is close. And I understand that hockey by nature will always be closer in score because you can't blow somebody out by 20.
yeah,
But it's that much better of a product because you are conceivably in the game until the very end. So why wouldn't you battle?
yeah. We also had a 7 game series in Boston and Toronto, which we weren't expecting,
The
but
exact same way that it always does.
we weren't expecting a 7 game series. We were expecting Toronto to kind
I
of.
was.
Uh, I thought it
I
was
was
going to be
because that's
six
no,
max.
that's the monkey on their back. They
Fair.
can't beat Boston, so you Boston could be down Pasternak, Taylor Hall, all the players in the world. I'd still give Boston at least 2 games
Yeah.
because for whatever reason, Toronto can't solve them.
Yeah.
Like these are the same players that played
Yeah.
against them all the way back to when Kessel's last year with the Maple Leafs and they lost and they had like a 3-1 lead and they lost that one.
Yeah.
So like it's been 9 years
Yeah.
and you've played these guys in the opening round or second round like 6 times now.
Yep. And
Try something else.
I mean, we did have a blowout series in New York and Washington, but like I don't think like
I don't think
my hope of a President's Trophy curse was just a pipe dream, and I knew that. So
well, you also have to recall Philly, for whatever reason, could have had that spot, and they punted on the playoffs.
yeah,
They took out their goalie against Washington in a tie game.
yeah,
They could have had this spot, and they said, "No, we're good. You, Ovechkin, this is probably your last year to do anything with it. Go for it."
yeah. And again, Carolina and New York, had a couple of close games in there, especially at the beginning. So it definitely was
Well,
closer than a normal 5 game series. I feel like too.
it was. Or are we talking about the Islanders one or
Yeah, yeah.
the Rangers one?
Carolina and
I mean, those games were great if you value hockey in its most beautiful sense. In the purest form of hockey, that's a great battle.
yeah,
That's the ultimate, like, I'll meet you at the wall and we'll fight for every inch. It's kind of like gridiron football in the trenches, but for hockey.
yeah,
But again, you when these two that's the problem with the current setup in the NHL is you have Metro versus Metro because of how the wild card works is you, your number one wild card goes to your number one Atlantic team, your number two goes to your number one Metro team, depending on who had the most points.
yep,
So unfortunately, teams that have seen each other plenty of times already just see more of them.
yeah.
So it's like they should
But
be the ultimate battles.
but
But
like
it means that teams don't have a chance either.
but like this at least gave us the Florida and Tampa Bay matchup, and I think
Yes,
that that is a treat. Like,
for now.
but like that was a great series. It was a 5 game series, but it definitely like it's memorable. The the
Well,
games.
I think we're also you have to analyze it from the sense of what Tampa Bay is at this point.
Yeah,
Stamkos is probably gone after this year because he's a free agent. I
I don't
think
know.
that we were watching the death of the the Tampa Bay competitive window.
Yeah. But so while you do have basically two Atlantic matchups and two Metro matchups, it does have like there are obvious drawbacks, but there are obvious like we have seen advantages. And we have seen both, the advantages and the drawbacks. So, I mean, if you find a better way where you can reduce those drawbacks while keeping the advantages that this kind of has, then I'm all for it. But I'm not necessarily completely mad at the format right now.
I guess my question would be when the Predators beat the Blackhawks. That was before this format, and the Predators went to the Stanley Cup final as the lowest seed to ever do
Yeah,
because that was the 1 through 8
1 through 8. Yeah.
seeding, and because hockey has the parity that it does, it for sure wasn't the first time that an 8 seed had beaten a 1. Kind of like
Yeah.
if in the NBA, it's rare for that to happen. It's only happened like 3 or 4 times,
Mm-hmm.
but in hockey, like I think there's a
Miracle
certain
runs.
beauty in that
Yeah.
because like the Blackhawks and Predators were in the same division. But if they weren't, and you at that point in time you were playing in division a lot more, you like 6 or 7 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at that now and you're kind of like, if it was the Blackhawks versus like the San Jose Sharks, and the San Jose Sharks pulled the upset, that's arguably better to me
But
because
so
you don't have so many regular season matchups to tell you
the
how it should go.
the thing is, right? You have that, but in this format, you're like it's more true to the let the best from the Atlantic come forward. Let the best like you right, you have an Eastern Conference final, but then you have an Atlantic Division final and a Metro Division final, right? So the benefit of this is you're really letting the top teams from each division kind of battle for that number one spot. And that can be seen as a
Like,
benefit or a drawback depending on
right. My go-to reaction is that's a drawback because there are years where the best two teams are in one division, not necessarily one in each division.
right. But what I'm
And I
saying
think
is
that you
like
run into the buzzsaw of you've played the teams in your division so much that you know how to dominate against them and
sure,
they know how to take away your weaknesses. So really, it's just random chance.
not really. Like you again, it's kind of two sides of a coin, right? You've played them so much, but then you're also in like a kind of sudden death kind of series where you're like, who's the best? Who's actually the best now that we have time to prepare and
Right.
go
But
to
what I'm
through a
saying is
couple of games?
everybody in the Metro knows how to beat the Capitals and knows how to beat the Island. It
Right,
takes
but
different to beat each of those teams. But if you put Florida against the Islanders, I don't know if that makes it 6 games
right,
or if
but
it's
again,
a sweep.
the point is that I'm just trying to argue that both 1 to 8 and this have benefits and drawbacks because I agree with you that Florida versus New York is different. But what I'm saying is there it depends on again nobody's going to be happy with either format. I feel like because do they really want do they always want different is the question because sometimes we got some weird matchups that I was like why am I watching this game also.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think again, it's just one of those things where there's different ways of looking at it, and
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I just think that divisional matchups at this point in time have been played enough times in the regular season to want to see something else come postseason because I think that just running it back and playing the same
So
song over again, that's kind of boring.
so my one thing that I the one thing I dislike about the NHL playoff picture is how the wild card teams always seem to line up as the same division as the number
Yes,
one seed they're playing.
yes.
And
That's the other thing because
yeah,
it's like
like
that takes away the one spot where like, ooh,
Yeah, like
like I don't know, like this team is 15 points less in the standings, but like who knows? They've never played a team quite like this. And so
right,
then
and
something beautiful can happen.
right. So that's my like because I don't necessarily mind like the 2 versus 3 matchups in the division. What I like my one problem with the format is how the wild card teams aren't necessarily a wild card. They're just number 4 in the same division.
Yeah,
Um,
there's nothing wrong with that, but like if
but
it's going to
then
happen this often, you might as well just call it that.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, let's look at the Western Conference picture.
I think that divisional also has something to do with that. They all play against each other enough times where it's kind of like, well, how many points can you really have?
Yeah, exactly.
And like the fourth place team in each division just kind of
Lots there.
is the one with the most points against their division.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll let you take the West. I've been
Yeah.
rambling enough.
So yeah, we had Dallas, Vegas that went 7 games in the quarterfinals. Winnipeg and Colorado, Vancouver and Nashville, and Edmonton and LA. We're currently in the Western Conference Finals with Dallas and Edmonton. Um, but yeah, I actually out of this, like Dallas and Vegas was a 7 game series. It was cool. And Vancouver Edmonton, I feel like those were the two notable. They both were 7 game series, but they were pretty notable in terms of a viewing experience.
I think this West Finals has some nice appeal to it because it is your best two.
Hmm.
You know, well, in
Technically, Vancouver is number was the second best.
sorry, we talked about 1 through 8 so much that I saw the one at the top of the bracket and the two at the bottom, and I was like year one and two. Um, I was rooting for Vancouver
Yeah,
because I have a soft spot in my heart for teams that come out of nowhere and probably aren't going to sustain the longest success.
yeah,
Vancouver seems like that team.
yeah.
Plus, they just have the most beautiful colors in the NHL between uh, Vancouver and Seattle. The dark blue and green, it works for me. I don't know. I know that that's kind of a girly thing to say, but I love the colors. In terms of overall hockey, this is great for Edmonton because Edmonton, like Toronto, for the longest time has been able to say we have all the horses, but the thing that people could say going back at them was, yeah, what have you done with all the horses?
Absolutely nothing.
So, like, they did make a conference final at one point in the McDavid era, right?
Yeah, but like
The COVID Cup,
the problem is they're like in the McDavid era, especially with all the pieces they had when they made that conference final, it's not good enough to say they made the conference final once.
right? But I'm just saying, like, was the COVID year that they
I,
made it
I
to
don't
the conference
remember.
finals and then lost to Montreal or something?
Something like that.
But like, this is really their first showing where it was like in round one they didn't get upset. They blew the doors off, which when you have McDavid, Draisaitl, and all those guys, you're supposed to.
Yep.
They won the tough series
Uh-huh.
against Vancouver. They went up against a 1 seed, took all 7 games. It took getting to the point of grit and playing
Yeah.
the ultimate defensive game, and they survived. So this does feel like a year where it sounds to believe that they will get over some kind of hump.
Uh-huh.
It may be that Dallas wins it, but if they get to the final this year, I think if you're McDavid, even if you don't win the cup, it's finally the progress that this organization
Needs really.
really should have had. Like, I'm not saying every generational talent should work like the Crosby era where or the Ovechkin era where you're basically thrown into being lit you're expected to lift the cup by like your third or fourth year. McDavid has now been around for at least what 7, 8 years.
It's a pretty long
Um,
time.
so
I
like
mean, the thing is, right?
they've long since been due for this.
But like, okay, so you look at let's take McDavid and the Oilers as a whole and compare them to like the Crosby era or Ovechkin, right? Where Crosby, you have Malkin, you have a bunch of other pieces, right?
Right, but now you can say the same thing about Edmonton.
Exactly, but like, and then in Washington, Ovechkin had Kuznetsov and a bunch of other pieces too, right? They still got it done. And you look at Edmonton, you have Draisaitl, you have Nugent Hopkins, you have like like you have a defense, you have some form of goaltending. I mean, it hadn't been the best all the time, but it was like good enough. As
This is year 9 for McDavid, by the way.
yeah. So the yes, everybody's going to compare Edmonton to the beginning, like Crosby's era at the beginning and Ovechkin at the beginning, and they kind of have a point because while I don't expect like even though you have generational talents, I don't expect you to win. Like the lack of progress of making it to the playoffs is a problem.
I think for me, like there was failure for all the teams that came before McDavid and Matthews, for which this
Yeah,
is also basing this off is the Penguins got to the Cup final and it was a 6 game series, but they really didn't look good in
right.
any
But
of the games in
what I'm
2009.
what I'm
Once,
saying is like it's not that like it's not the fact that they aren't lifting a cup, right? Because win or lose, they made progress. They made it a couple series in, right?
right,
And it's been 9 years.
right. But what I'm saying is they haven't had that building block stage yet. They haven't gotten far enough to be like they got to the peak, but they didn't climb it. Which I think if you look at Ovechkin in the Capitals, yeah, they it was a few years later, but they lost to the King or was they lost to somebody
All right. But
along
again,
the way.
like my point is that like this team should have been consistently making it to the playoffs and consistently challenging the teams they're up against regardless if they win or lose. And in some playoff series in the past, I can clearly see that like hey, they're just not doing anything.
Right.
And it's
But
not
I think it's taken too long to get there.
exactly, it's not the fact that they haven't won, it's that some of their series haven't really been a contest.
Right. I think it was a lot easier to the average fan who doesn't pay attention to teams on a national level to confuse Austin Matthews with Connor McDavid in the sense that both
Both
their
of them.
teams did the same thing.
Yeah.
They just happened to be in different conferences.
Yep. So I
So
mean,
it is
hopefully,
nice to see Edmonton has climbed a bit further
yeah,
because it looks like Toronto has oversaturated their payroll to the point where the climb is
dude.
now turning into a free fall.
Yeah, yeah. It does not look good. Ah,
Well, for a second, let's talk about you have their coach now. Sheldon Keefe is
Sheldon
the
Keefe.
Devils coach.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Is
happy
he a
we've
good
done
coach or was he
something.
just
I'm happy we've done something, and I'm gonna give him the time to look at the Devils and like something needs to change. Like so, I let me see what he can do. I'm not.
does
I
a little
have.
bit of your inside just kind of ask the or like have the gut reaction kind of like I did with Kyle Dubas where it's like you just happen to be the guy who didn't fuck up generational talents
Yeah.
and like now that he's somewhere else, what exactly does he have going for him?
Yeah. But yeah, like I mean, the point is, it's the Devils needed some change. Okay, the coach is apparently that change. right? So he has, like, in my mind, he has free reign to do what he needs to do at this point. I just want to see how the season will go.
Let's bring back Lindy Rupp, right?
Ah, hell no.
But Frank the Tank loves him.
Anyway, okay, we're talking about a coach. Let's talk about a leaving coach.
By the way, you know who Frank the Tank is, right? I met him in Chicago.
Great,
He
great. All right. Anyway, let's go.
did not look at the picture at all. We have to change where his eyes were.
Just let's just keep going.
All
We have a
right.
leaving coach after 40 years.
Yeah, you can ask the question if at this point his welcome has been overstayed a little bit too. He like when in creating the graphics here, he is a 40-year head coach
Yep.
for arguably some of the worst franchises in sports. And
The worst iterations of
coach
some
for
franchises in sports too.
when you coach for the Senators, the Islanders, because keep in mind those 2000s Islanders teams were bad, and the Coyotes. Maybe we shouldn't say he was a 40-year coach. Maybe we should say he was like a 20-year coach. And even then, I think like we actually, I'm gonna look this up, but I want you to take over. I'm gonna look this up. I want to see how many years he spent on bad teams.
Oh, it's like 15 or something, I
His
believe.
coaching record is 212, 351, and 76.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
We made graphics for this? 310, 408, and 48.
Yeah.
Points in 44% of games.
Yeah. Like, I'm just so surprised that you can go that long and still be basically 100 games under.
This is absolutely disgusting.
Isn't it
Um,
so weird, right? You've coached really long. 40 years is a long time, right? But I mean, I don't expect you to have a winning record per se, but 100 game difference?
so let's go through this. He spent 4 years in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
They went, that's fucking bad. 39, 178, and 18.
Yep.
Points in 20.4% of games.
And he's still coached after
It's
that.
really hard to do in the NHL.
And he's still coached after that.
Yeah, after Ottawa, I mean, it took him a few years to get to Dallas. He didn't even skip a year. He went straight to the Islanders
Yeah.
and went 98 and 50, or I'm sorry, he went 38, 50, and 12,
Yeah.
but got points for, I
50%.
did have 44% of the time points, which when you look at 20.4% is a massive improvement. His 1 year in Dallas was 3 years after his initial year in Winnipeg, where his 1 year in Boston, he was 36, 32, and 12
Mm-hmm.
points in 52.5%.
Yeah.
Back down the road after the Islanders and Phoenix. This is really sad. You only, like, he definitely was an interim coach in Phoenix. 212 and 3. And did not get re-upped, which at that point in time, Phoenix was 2003-04. They were a
But
joke.
like you have to, like, there is something about basically being a coach for 40 years and being that bad, especially in the beginning.
What we really have to analyze here is after Phoenix, he was 49 years old, did not touch coaching again until 2019-2020 when he was 65.
Yep.
So 16 years later, he gets a call and he goes 23-19, but with 14 overtime losses. Um, or I'm sorry, they go 2013 and 5 um, that season, which appears
That's pretty
to
good.
be a COVID season,
Yeah.
2019, 2020. Um, 2020-21 was 23-19-14. So he keeps his head above water in Dallas. He goes 46-30-6
Uh-huh.
in Dallas.
Yep.
So then he goes to Winnipeg at the beautiful age of 68 to finish it off. And in Winnipeg, he goes 98-57-9. So he gets better as he's older. The problem is here is he really only was a decent to good coach for 5 years.
Yep.
And like this is just looking at his overall head coaching. I imagine he was better not as a head coach.
But I
Because
mean,
this
also
only
like
shows so many
he
years.
started in Ottawa of all places, man. Like,
No, he didn't. Not as a head coach, he didn't.
oh really?
Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, oh
I
yeah.
guess that's why it's a full circle moment. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, he started there, right? But like, yeah, those years in like the bad teams really like brings down your uh overall
would it shock you that according to the NHL record site that he never got a vote for Jack Adams?
Nope.
All
But
right. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, but like think about it, like
you made me make a graphic for this. I just want to let you know that.
yeah, it's funny.
Certainly is something.
Anyway, let's talk about the newest team in the NHL that's going to be nameless.
Yeah. For now. For this season, Utah will not have a name, which is fine. We saw with Washington once they got rid of the R words that like it's probably not the best for merch, but if you throw out a great color scheme and like a creative font
Mm-hmm.
or typeface, people will still go after it.
Yeah.
I think Washington fans they got a nice font, they got a decent logo,
Mm-hmm.
that little W logo,
Mm-hmm.
but they kept the colors.
Yep.
And to a lot of people, that was enough.
For
Utah in the local community will do fine in selling tickets and merchandise.
the first year, the name doesn't really matter.
Correct. It's what they do with it. We do have to talk. Um, can we pull up the list of 20 names? Because I
Uh,
didn't put that in the graphic because like there is no way I could. I don't know After Effects enough
I mean,
to.
also like more than half those names are just terrible. Not gonna lie.
They really are, but like I didn't know After Effects well enough to know how to import 20 text boxes. I use a lot of templates. Um, so let's see where they are. I have to find them. Why am I when I say Utah hockey names, I get a
Random name generator.
1 hour ago from the Washington Times. Jello throws its hat onto the ice as a name option for Utah's NHL team.
Amazing.
Utah Jello.
Amazing.
Dear God. Um. Oh wait, they think it should be the Utah Green Jellos.
Still,
Okay.
that's even worse.
Okay. Well, this is the most timely we've been with any kind of news. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Anyway,
Let's
like,
see here.
I mean, what? So I'm more interested. Like, okay, what does this mean? Like, I mean, I really like the Cochina. Not gonna lie, from Arizona.
Yeah, but you just can't use it in Utah. Doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
but like, so I really hope they do
Well,
something fun with their logo whenever they get a name. You know?
I think it's also it's sad because Seattle took the color scheme that would have been perfect. I think if
Yeah.
they go with like the Utah Jazz, like navy lime, not lime green, but like forest green,
Hmm.
which would maybe be too similar to Seattle. Like I think you could do a lot with a hockey jersey that's like those colors with sprinkle in some powder blues. Because you do need wintry colors.
Hmm.
Looking at the list here, Utah HC, that's a great Europe name. That's not going to happen here. Um, Utah Frost, Utah Mountaineers, Utah Hive, Utah Outlaws. I don't think Outlaws is going to work. And don't like. Unfortunately, this list is a mix of things that are too stereotypically aligned with words that you would um, associate with winter,
Mm-hmm.
it, and things that are too associated with hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that's quite really both. Because like one that might be both is like Utah Ice, but it's too simple to actually fly.
Yeah. I mean, Mountaineers could
Utah
work, I
Mammoth,
guess.
yeah, but like you also have West Virginia Mountaineers, and so like what the West Virginia Mountaineers stand for is kind of more like country roads, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so if you know one, it's kind of hard to know the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but all at the same
Like
time, like,
one is about, shooting guns and hunting stuff like that in a more country sense, and one is about doing it in a more, you know, snow wintry sense. Like
yeah.
Utah Freeze, Utah Venom, Utah Squall. These are all just weather conditions.
Yep.
Utah Black Diamonds, Utah Fury, Utah. The thing about Black Diamonds is
That's just not a name,
one,
bro.
you can't say Black Diamonds
Huh.
because, like, look at Golden Knights. It's been 6 years; they've already shortened to night.
Yeah.
Um, Utah Caribou, Utah Swarm, Utah Glaciers, Utah Yeti, Blizzard, Hive, Frost, Canyons, Powder.
Yeah, but
Um,
like, I mean, my point is
these are
that
not good.
like, no, I don't think any of these names are actually it.
No,
But
not have a
yeah,
chance.
like, I
The
mean,
fact that they're making people vote on one of these is kind of disgusting.
yeah. So, I mean, again, like, I don't think any of them are actually it. So, I'm just hoping that like, whatever, like, the team can actually come out and do something. Like it, I have no
Well, it's the
hope, but
same
like, I hope.
team as it's the same team as last year.
Yeah, I know. So,
That makes it worse.
exactly. Yeah. Anyway.
But they do now have different ownership, which could make things better.
Hmm. Yeah. So, got anything you want to wrap up with?
Um, yeah, I don't know.
No.
Not really.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Uh,